Welcome, everyone, to the Print on Demand Playbook podcast. My name is Rusty Pepper.
And I'm Maddy Alcala.
And together we explore the ever-evolving world of print on demand, from the companies and technology shaping it to the leaders who make it great. And all along the way, we share the strategies, the insights, and stories to help you and your business grow, innovate, and get ahead. So, Maddy, happy summer to you.
Happy summer to you, Rusty. Are you surviving the heat? Everyone I've talked to these days has been really hot.
I live in Texas, so you just
I
kind of
know.
accept that heat is going to be part of your summer.
That's true.
Now, I know our friends in Europe and stuff are suffering from the heat right now because it's just sitting on top of Europe. But I here it's like 90. I just got off vacation, so we were where we were. It was not hot.
Not that bad. That's
It
good.
wasn't bad
And
at all.
well, at least we love our air conditioning in America. So at least
Yes, we
we
do.
can all suffer, but do it in our little nice refrigerators. I think our European colleagues don't have as much AC around.
No, that's more of a.
Yeah,
It's definitely not. But it's temporary. So hopefully it
it
starts
is.
to remove away and they'll get some cooler weather. But I want to ask you a few questions because, as I know most of our listeners know by now, before we get our guests introduced, I like to ask you one or two questions typically because you always have a good pulse on where the industry is. So,
Okay.
you
All right.
ready?
In my hot seat. Yes.
You're on the hot seat. This is going to be the easy one because this is going to actually relate probably maybe to what we're going to be talking about.
Okay.
When I say the word workflow, what immediately comes to mind?
Required in
Required.
technology. Yes, required. I
Okay.
say that because I think the gap is widening, and I think that print companies and shop floors used to be able to get away without an investment in workflow in the same way that they now are really required to make an investment in the right way, because there's no excuse anymore. There's so many technologies and opportunities out there, and I think the bar is just raised. And so that's why I said the first thing that said to mind is required. You got to make an investment and you got to have it.
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. I mean, because there's that messy middle, right? You have the tech stack, but within that, there's a lot of parts that go into it. People don't think about the pre-press, everything. Oh, it's digital. There's no pre-press. Color management. All those things are very important because you don't want to have bad work being produced. And so
Yeah.
having the right automation and tools and technologies to be able to deliver that is important. So I like the term required.
Yes, it is no longer a nice to have. It is a need to have, I think. And that's a very good segue into introducing our guest, because I think we're going to get a lot into technology and workflow, and maybe we can debate a bit what is truly required versus what is a nice to have at this point on shop floors. But with that, we will introduce Erik Strik, the CEO of Print Factory. Thank you for joining us, Erik.
Happy to be there. Thank you for your invitation.
Well, why don't we start? Can you introduce yourself a bit? Tell us a bit about Print Factory, because not everyone might be familiar with the
Absolutely.
company.
Yes, we like workflow. We are behind the scenes, and we are doing that already for quite some time. So my name is Erik Strik. I'm founder and CEO of Print Factory, and we have been in this industry for quite a long time. First as a technology provider to other workflow manufacturers, delivering bits and pieces in technology. We started off as an internal automation department from a printing company ourselves. And since 2011, on the market with our own products, mainly focusing on automating the workflow for large POD printer providers worldwide, and especially those who need to produce on multiple locations, and making sure that this is one coordinated, consistent production.
That was well said.
Very well said. It's almost like you've done this before. Well, I have a couple follow-up questions for that, Erik. So, again, we have a lot of different listeners that tune into this show,
Mm.
people who are experts on the technology side or workflow or print, and then a lot of people who are newer to POD and learning about the different technologies or options or industry trends. So let's dig a little bit deeper into what Print Factory does. So I know this because of our conversations, but I believe you specialize mostly in apparel. But take us through kind of the different components of the software and what are some of the problems that you solve?
First, I think when you make a product, digital product, you can do it by doing all the steps which you mentioned before, the pre-press, getting the colors right, get the product right, get it, the design which you get from your customer to make it fit for production and do all those steps, which you can do. You have all the suites, you have the full Adobe suite to get it done, and you will manage. And I compare it like making a cake. If you ask me and you get somebody like coming from doing a bake-off show, they will make a fantastic cake. And they put a lot of expertise, skill, work in it, and the best cake ever will be produced because you know and master all the steps which are there to do it. However, the problem is the consistency. If you need to do a lot of jobs with multiple sources, multiple ways of doing it, you don't need to make a cake. You need to have a cake factory, one which delivers you always a consistent, high-quality product over and over again, wherever you throw at it. So you, at the end, the workflow, what does it for you? It takes away all those nasty steps which are there, which is the pre-press, which is the color management, the consistency. Also, when you deal with multiple products, because like you said, apparel, we cover also other products like simply coffee mugs or these kind of things. Everything which you throw at it can be produced consistent. And what we essentially do as a workflow is capture that recipe of the master cook, instill it in software, in a flow, that's why it's called a workflow, and then make it repeatable over and over again. I hope that explains a bit.
So you're going outside of apparel and you're doing large format, you've got drinkware, so you got cylindrical, all these different types of presses that you're able to work, your software is able to work with.
Yeah, and even going further, like industries like ceramics, flooring, basically everything which is decorated or printed, being digital, which is the main thing to do, because that allows us to do a lot of jobs one by one, but also on the other side in bulk production, analog production, silk screen, offset, and these kind of solutions. So everything what we say has to do with decoration is where we work. And we take it more or less from the moment that the order comes in up to the machine, to the pre-press, until the moment it's ready for shipment. And as you can imagine, if you're in this industry, there are a lot of steps behind, coming from raw material to a shippable product.
So would you say it creates a streamlined, more efficient process from a production cycle standpoint for the customer?
Absolutely. It's putting the work you're doing day to day into a template, in a mold. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel every day. You know what you want to do, you know how you do it, and then take care of all the variables in it. Which things do you customize from a certain product for customer by customer, and trying to flow that into. But it makes you much more efficient. It takes what you do and makes that on steroids, because you learn more or less the system to do the things you do manually, and making sure it keeps doing that with the right colors, and do other things like saving ink in the same flow. So people think, okay, it's a big investment, workflow. It's a big burden to make the change, absolutely. But at the end, it pays for itself because in this process, the efficiencies you get in loss of waste, trials, samples, all these kinds of things, trying to get things right, and the ink saving in the color management will pay for these kinds of systems in an instant. But it's a big step.
It's a big step. And I imagine too, there's a human element of that, right? And I've a question buried in here, but just listening to you speak, I would guess that you've worked with customers. And if I go to your cake analogy, right, they're bakers, they're artisans, they're
I
making
love
something.
cake.
Rusty's totally with you on the cake analogy.
Yeah.
But they're probably used to making that cake as you're, and really enjoy that process, especially some of the people who are, more on the shop floor, kind of the mad scientists, if you will, behind the scenes. Is it difficult to sometimes get those people to see the value of you no longer have to make all those decisions, right? You need to make the decision on a grander scale, implement the workflow, but do you run into any of that, of people resisting because they want to be in the weeds, making that cake over and over again?
Of course. First of all, it's against human nature. Change, people don't like change. And it's much more convenient to do the things you're used to do. But on the other hand, you need to question yourself. And that's the question which we ask. Are certain things not becoming a chore, something you do over and over, and where you don't express that creativity? That's where you started the company for. Usually, it's many of the companies started because people like to create stuff. But then, of course, you need to run a business, so you need to make not one, you need to make 10, you need to make 100, and you're doing over and over again. Would it not be nicer that you would be able to teach a system to do that and to focus yourself on making the next new product, the next new thing which you then, once you figured it out and you spend all the time on it, to do that? And yes, making this change is not an easy, mentally not an easy step. Technically, it's not too difficult, but giving away the control over your beloved product to some machine, that's a step. I had to make that step too, back then, long time ago. But I was forced to, because I was not able to get the jobs done at the quantity, at the speed, and on the consistency my customers demanded from me, while I wanted to do other things. At the end, I started to run a workflow company, which I would never have envisioned at that time.
Yeah, most people don't grow up saying, gosh, I can't wait to start a workflow company, because it's just not one of these. But it's a very important part of the process. So it sounds like basically it was created by necessity. It was incubated inside of a printing company, and there was an aha moment that you said, okay, there's something here. What was the vetting process? Because there's a lot of people out there that are going through this, a very similar type of journey within their own systems that they're building and looking at. And they're like, okay, but for you, from an entrepreneur standpoint, what was your aha moment when you said, okay, there's actually something here that we should really spin this out and make this a business?
The number one problem which we were facing back then is simply people. People, the first thing they associate is workflow is with cutting jobs. And actually, that's not the reality. The reality is getting more out of the same people, because we could not get the right people in fast enough. It was limiting us in our execution. Also, we could not get ahead quick enough and adding more things, because your mind has also a certain capacity. And when you start to do more products, more variations, more people, and then a lack of people, that was where we were more or less forced to go down this road. And once we were down this road, our colleagues, competition in the city said, well, actually, this is what we need to. This will help me and solve these kind of problems. And that's how we actually started spinning this off as an independent company.
I'm sure as an independent company, you've been through many ups and downs, Erik, as all entrepreneurs have. What has really, kept you with the business? I'd love to understand some of the passion behind what you're doing and why you're doing it.
It's coming back to the same thing which you said. If you're creating products, that's what you want to do. You want to be creative. You want to build things, etc. And what we found initially, when we saw the first digital printers, we thought that's great. We can now get any color of vinyl and cut our stuff from that. But we found out you could do so much more. And even after so many years, I come into factories which people who build printers, who build new applications. And every time we see new stuff, it's also like with our new mother company, the number of exciting new things they are building and what they will bring to the market. That makes me get up every morning and trying to adapt our system to embrace these new products and technologies too.
I've actually personally talked to a lot of marketing and procurement people, and color consistency is still a big pain point for them. And there's a concern. It's like, oh, we're going to move now away from our traditional way of printing to POD fulfillment through digital. Why is that a hard challenge to solve for so many companies, especially when you're dealing with like multiple devices, materials, locations, and as you talked about, having the right people in place to operate them?
Yeah, and the number of factors which you mentioned is even much longer. You have environment, humidity, temperature, quality of material. The list is never ending. And besides that, we thought digital would be easy when we started with it. It turned out to be much harder to give this consistency in digital. So many things which can wrong. The number of possibilities in digital are endless. The numbers of things to do wrong are endless too. So this is where we have been focusing. First, we did it the traditional way. Afterwards, we figured out we actually need to capture the knowledge of the experts, of all those color experts in the world, into a one system, which guides you through the process of getting it done. And at the end, you need equipment who can measure the color, who can measure the material, and you need that as a continuous process. It's not something you do once. Because let's face it, it's summer. And we start making the colors right in the summer. At the moment humidity changes, the temperature changes, the colors are off again. And especially these kind of materials we're working in digital are very vulnerable for that.
Yes, well, I imagine the heat wave we began talking the show about, both on the show, that even factors like that, as you said, really can make changes. You alluded to something about a minute or two ago that I'm going to come back to, your new mother company. So the elephant in the room, Print Factory, you announced an acquisition by Kornit a couple months ago, I believe. So that's a huge thing. Congratulations.
Very much.
First off.
Thank you very much. Very
Huge
happy with the
congratulations.
change.
That's wonderful. Well,
You're buying
tell us
drinks
a little...
next time we see you.
Kornit's buying drinks.
Yeah.
We'll tell that to Ronan. But seriously, though, how did the acquisition come about? You've been independent for such a long time. We'd love to just learn a little bit more about what this process has been like for you.
Well, I think this is actually the word what you just mentioned. Independent is the key word. If you come back to workflow, which means you need to drive multiple equipment, types of equipment from multiple vendors, because people don't buy everything from one vendor. So our key to being able to serve the world's biggest companies is that independence part. So for us, that was a huge, important thing. And actually that is, we had offers over the years from many, many companies, and which are usually brushed off. But then Kornit came with their proposition. And they told me what their actual plan was. And that made me listen to, and I said, okay, we looked at what Kornit has already in store, in software, etc., which was very complementary on what Print Factory has to offer. Things which Print Factory needed to build on its own. But on the other hand, to be able to fulfill the production for companies which are using Kornit equipment, etc., you need to be able to drive other machines too. You need to be able to make a solution which is independent, agnostic, even from Kornit being the new owners. And that was also their shared vision. And there are very limited examples where this has been done. And by this situation enabled me to invest faster and more in building this complete ecosystem which drives all facets of digital production with the power backed by Kornit. And on the other hand, enables Kornit to open up the doors to analog production, to have a seamless integration into multi-decoration markets where people are not just only doing apparel, and being able to deliver on those things like consistency, color consistency, and a mixed fleet which you can drive with one system, by which, and that's also what we agreed, Print Factory stays independent from Kornit, has its own way, but has a powerful owner to make this future happen.
Yeah. You mentioned something when it came to analog. You just mentioned like having that analog, being able to support the analog part of this. Are you talking about screen? Or are you talking about what when you say analog? How are you defining that?
Okay, let's take, for example, in textile apparel, etc. Analog is things like offset, rotogravure, screen printing, all these kind of techniques. And where you see a very traditional, we have a lot of customers which do bulk production. They start off the short series, testing their designs, testing their collection in the market. And only when the volume becomes big, you need to transition actually from digital to analog, because then you come to the bulk and the price point. While this saves you a huge amount of stock, if you can consistently produce in digital and then being able to transition to analog, or the other way around, and having both capabilities there. And in the meanwhile, and we have seen this in the large format industry, slowly, bit by bit, the digital technology becomes faster and more capable of driving bigger batches and numbers, to the point that actually screen printing, the large format printer, is a specialist business, which is absolutely not the situation in apparel and textile.
So making sure you have consistency across that product set, whether it's being printed digitally or analog, it's
you have the freedom to go where you need to go. And if you have repeat orders, you can make the next time another choice. And that allows you, even for that, especially for analog companies, to make that step. Because now you usually see analog is one way, digital is a completely different way. And there's no crossover. And we deliver that.
So now you're touching on a supply chain strategy. The way I look at that is really it's more of a product. It's not just a production strategy; it's a supply chain strategy as well, because it allows the owners of those products to basically better manage their supply chain and be a little bit more agile and nimble by having the same consistency across them.
Yeah, and that's also where you see our customers switching to Print Factory for that reason, because they look at different production technologies to achieve the same products, or production even on other locations with remote production facilities of their own, or even other fulfillers providing the same production. And therefore, having more or less a worldwide scale, as if they have one single production facility, but then scattered all over the world. And also the other way around, which is actually bringing things which traditionally are outsourced, like the larger batches, to bring them onshore again by having micro factories being enabled to do the same thing, but then onshore.
Yeah, I don't want to diminish at all what you're saying, because I think that, I mean, we're talking about this as we should, but this is such a huge and pivotal shift for the industry. The more and more this becomes true, and that operators and, like you said, Rusty, people managing their supply chain don't have to include consistency across decoration methods as a factor, that can be accepted as a given. If I screen print a shirt, or if I digitally print a shirt, the shirt's going to be the same, or the outcome's going to be commercially consistent to a very high degree of how you pass quality and durability, sample checks, all of those things. It really changes the calculus for business owners. And I know I've talked about this my entire career in this industry, and I know both of you have as well. So it's really cool to see that shift happening. And to go to my question, Erik, what do you think, because of what we're seeing now with that capability, and obviously Print Factory's role in driving it, how fast is the market really moving toward digital and print on demand? Like, it really depends on who you talk to, right? I'd love to get your opinion.
Yeah. Let's put it this way. This is my 35th year. I'm still not finished. I think that tells you see a huge amount of things going extremely fast. New technologies coming extremely fast. New possibilities extremely fast. While the transition, on the other hand, is going extremely slow. However, and that's what we have seen in other industries, like in the ceramics and in the large format, at some point, the industry reached a tipping point. When all those technologies, because all the things we talk about are technologies which development takes time. You need to get it done. You take one product, you take one process, bit by bit by bit. And at a certain point, you come to this tipping point, and then it happens like seemingly overnight. But the process towards it, it's long. It's very long. It's exciting, new things, and people put it mainly, and that's where you see digital mainly living in the exception area until it becomes mainstream.
How far away do you think we are to be mainstream?
Looking at the development, the pace of development, and unfortunately on this part, I cannot speak freely because we are, of course, in the kitchens of multiple printer manufacturers, seeing where they are heading and what the capabilities are they are developing there. I think, will analog disappear next year or something like that? Answer is no. Especially if you look at it, there are many places where there are a lot of analog. But I would be willing to predict that a much larger chunk of the production, which is now analog, will move to digital in the near future.
My opinion on that is very similar. I look at it over the next 5 to 10 years. 95% right now is probably analog. And when you look across everything, is being produced analog. Digital is going to flip over that 5 to 10 year period, and so probably down to about 20%, 25% will be analog. The rest will be digitally produced items. That's kind of where I look at it, because it's not going to go away. It's like fulfillment. It's not going to go away. There's always going to be a time and place for it, but the amount and the reliance on it is just going to be reduced because you can get it produced locally and when you need it.
Absolutely, and this is also very clear. In the last years, we had so many big events which broke down the traditional way textile production happened, and especially in the supply chain, that we are it's forcing digital adoption faster than what we think. And we thought it was mainly technology driven, because some super printer would come to the market which solves all our problems. That will never happen, by the way, but it's more that the world is changing. We have wars, we have terrorists, we have environmental challenges, we have many challenges we have to deal with, for which a lot of them, actually the answer is digital. And that will be a bigger driver than this super printer coming to the market.
Speaking of drivers, we would be remiss not to ask a software company CEO, how is AI changing everything that you're doing? Is it changing? What are some of your views?
It is changing everything. Probably not in the way what people will think, but we talk about, and it will be simply everywhere, in smaller and bigger pieces. Things like on quality control, we already know it's machine learning. But also the machines are learning now to adapt to changes in material, in batch material, etc., without having slow processes like measuring everything. So measuring will be coming lesser, while AI can already fill in what will happen as a next step. Content creation, which is the obvious one. It's a lot of AI content creation. Still, at this moment, pretty low resolution, etc. But you see already really exciting stuff coming up, which helps us to have endless motives and designs coming up. You see it in the machine stability inside the machine. And every aspect you see, you will see smaller or bigger steps on AI.
When you look out, Erik, next 6 to 12 months, what are you most excited about, both personally or professionally?
Well, of course, I will keep it close to home. With the acquisition, we have gotten a treasure trove of knowledge and technology, which we are happy we can use to it. We have also a lot of capabilities which we are building on right now, and we hope to show them already on the Printing United, to show the first steps, what we are doing behind the scenes. And of course, that's currently 100% or 200% my life. And that's where I'm excited about.
So a little bit of a tease for Printing United.
I know. I was going to say, now I'm excited to see Printing United, what you guys show off.
Yep, absolutely. Looking forward to meet you there.
Yes. Well, on the closing note side, and that's very exciting, congratulations. To go back to the acquisition a little bit, as you said, you've been independent for quite some time. I know with the structure and Kornit as the new parent, you'll retain a lot of that independence, but it is different. You do have a boss now, I imagine, for the first time in a while. What is that like from a professional side, emotional side? Love to hear that on the personal element.
Of course, there are differences. There's a reporting structure, etc. But also, the reality is with the way we're working, and also the culture, which was one of the main things which I checked. This is the cultural fit there between the people in Print Factory and Kornit, which is absolutely a really good fit. There's a big synergy and energy between them. And that makes my life personally better. Because, okay, like we said earlier, I like to make products. I like to make things. And with this structure behind, I'm having the ability to have a lot of, let's say, the day-to-day business, back office stuff, which you have to deal with as a CEO of a smaller company, keeping that in mind, not being that much of my time, while I'm there able to go to customers, to be in the market and to see what can we do next to get this transition done.
Wonderful. Well, that is certainly the dream, and I sympathize and resonate with a lot of what you're saying there completely. To bring us home, one last question. I imagine you get asked this frequently. If you were talking to another founder in the print technology space who wanted to get acquired, what advice would you give them?
It's actually only one device, and only one advice is there, and that is everything is about culture. The technology, money, all nice, etc., but not. You need to have a culture. You need to have a future, and a shared future which is viable and which you really want to go for. If not, it's just a sell-off and you walk out and enjoy the golf course. But if that's not your ambition, then that is what you need to do.
Very good advice.
Yeah, no, this has been great. Thank you so much for joining us on the podcast today, and we look forward to seeing you at Printing United. If people want to learn more about Print Factory or you, how can they get a hold of you or find you?
Obviously, printfactory.cloud, where is our website, where also the locations, contact persons for our offices worldwide. And we are happy to receive your challenges coming to our way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for the time, Erik. Good luck to you and the team. You're really building something incredible, and we hope to see you be successful.
Thank you for having me. Thank you for your time. Have a good one.
That was a great conversation. A very thoughtful CEO. You can tell, he didn't say this, but Erik is clearly very passionate about what he's doing. Otherwise, it sounds like he'd be on the golf course right now. But pretty cool that he's taken on this challenge of everything that Print Factory is solving for in the space.
No, exactly. Yeah, I agree. And it can't be easy just being acquired. I mean, it's a good problem to have, right? You get acquired and then, but you've been independent and now it's like, you've got a reporting structure, a larger organization to be a part of. One thing I thought was actually very interesting in the conversation was really when you brought up analog, because I was not expecting to hear the analog part of that conversation. And it sounds like it's actually, which is really important because everybody that we're talking to and we talk about with ProMan it's not all or nothing. It's like there's a hybrid approach to it. So being able to understand how they're solving across those two different mediums is actually interesting to me. That was probably the one takeaway that I was like, okay, that was interesting that I was not expecting.
Yeah, I completely agree. And it reinforces the acquisition rationale for Kornit, because I'm thinking back to some of their investor materials. I haven't looked at recent publications of it, but they had a graph pie chart they would show frequently showing the percentage of the textile market that is digital and the percentage that's analog. And unsurprisingly, such a large percentage, 90+% is still analog. And so for them to acquire a technology company that is not just helping drive the shift to digital, but is also helping make analog and digital consistent so that operators can really make the right fleet decision, it's very smart, and it makes sense given what Kornit is doing as a business.
The one question I kind of regret not asking, and I should have, is like on the print on paper side, right? So how are they helping those companies solve for that, right? He talked about how they are doing it, but we really didn't get into it because that's also another big lift right now within, whether it be large format or whatnot, is how are they actually keeping that color consistency? Because it's a concern for a lot of people we talk to. Like, how am I going to make sure that we have that consistency? Because especially when you're using a print network.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's when you add, like he said, there's so many factors between production types, even within the same shop. And then you start adding multiple shops, and then you add the different layer, different operators and different equipment. I imagine that's a huge challenge. And well, not imagine, we see it all the time, to your point, and see it in textiles, we see it in paper, we see it in all sorts of different substrates. So, they're chipping away at it. You can tell Print Factory is, especially now with Kornit, they'll have a bigger sledgehammer to attack that problem. But there's so much still to solve for in the industry. And I'm thinking back to our conversation with HP in Barcelona. They're chipping away at it too. There's a lot of big companies that see how that's an opportunity that are putting a lot of money into investing to solve it.
Yeah. I just worry, this is just one more layer that people, and it's an important layer. So, I mean, obviously workflow is, but, we talk about that, the challenges people have when they're analyzing their tech stack and how much Every
Yeah.
time you turn around, you're like, oh, I need this piece. I also need this tool. I need this. It's a lot for a lot of companies.
Yeah, it is. I mean, and I've thought more about that too. I had a conversation with someone this week, and I was looking at this from a research perspective. Even if you just look at the amount of money that has been invested in tech, like print related technologies, and you compare that to sister industries, I was looking at retail as a comparison point. There's just a huge difference still. And obviously some of that changes and it gets a little bit more equal when you take in like, I'm sure, some of the numbers aren't public, right? Of like what HP is putting into things, what the big OEMs are putting into things. But if you look at private market funding, if you look at a lot of those metrics, money has barely scratched the surface in terms of investing in print technologies. And and print is one of the top 6 largest industries globally, if you add all of the different types of print and substrates together. So I think money doesn't solve all problems, but I do think that there's a correlation there between all of the very scattered development efforts and the long tail of technology companies that are approaching this problem, because no one's putting hundreds of millions of dollars from a funding perspective into this. So maybe that'll change. Maybe AI accelerates that because you don't need the same amount of money to go and build software and solve problems now. But I do think there's just kind of an overall structural gap in what's being invested into technology in our landscape.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. And I look at what's exciting about all this is the fact that the opportunities, he alluded to the fact that it's a growth engine, and he's bullish on where we are right now. And that's aligns with what we're talking about, what we're hearing from others. So it's an exciting time. It was interesting because we were there at the Connections event when they announced the acquisitions.
Yes, very, very cool. It's a good closing the loop, like we've talked about Kornit multiple times on the show, and they're doing a lot to drive the print on demand space forward. So excited to see
They
how
are.
Print Factory accelerates that.
Yeah, see them in pretty united too. So let's see what they're cooking up, what cake they're making. Because I love me a cake.
You love some cake, Mr. Rusty. Love you some cake. We'll have to get you some digitally printed cake. They probably can do that. I'm sure that technology exists, like edible ink.
Absolutely, they do. Yeah, I mean, think about
Well, there
like
we go.
cookies and stuff like that. All this, like,
Yeah.
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 So
Well, there we
if
go.
anybody wants
You
to,
and I
if
can
anybody
start
wants
a
to make
little
a
side
POD
business.
playbook cake for us, we'll gladly take it.
Send it to Rusty because I'm celiac. So you take all the gluten cake. I'll
Yeah,
eat my
give me all the
carrots or
gluten.
something. Yeah, exactly. Extra gluten for Rusty.
Can you eat carrot cake?
If it's made with gluten-free flour. It's actually my favorite type of cake.
Is it?
Yeah, I love carrot cake.
Yeah, sweet.
It's so good. So
That
good.
cream cheese
Now I'm
frosting.
remembering I haven't had breakfast, so we should probably wrap this up, and I'm gonna go make myself something to eat. So have a nice little piece of cake for breakfast. Start the day right.
Yeah, have a piece of carrot cake. So, all right,
Just put
well,
me to
good
sleep.
stuff. All right,
Very
everyone.
good
Thanks
stuff.
for listening to this last episode of the POD Playbook. And until next time, see you.
Peace out.